broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA.
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Exit again.
UA announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, the 25th day of February 2016. If that didn't wake you up, I don't know what will. Well, Washington Post this morning, editorial board, begging the GOP establishment to finish off Donald Trump once and for all. Let me give you the number, and then we'll introduce my co-host, and we will be on our way. If you want to join us on air, 347-855-8118. That's 347-855-8118. Now we welcome my co-host, Richard Zombek, to the program. And, you know, you had a rough day yesterday, so let's just be honest about it.
What happened to esteemed co-host?
Well, when you're the professor, you're esteemed.
I did have a rough day. I had a very rough day. I had a day that gave me so much anxiety and pain that I wanted to cry so badly that I couldn't, which really sounds kind of wimpy. But I got up yesterday morning. Was it yesterday? No, it was the morning before, wasn't it? Yeah, it's been 2 days of this garbage. I got up. My computer wasn't working. I quickly went through my head everything that I was going to have to do to attempt to repair the situation, and ended up in a fetal position in a puddle of my own snot.
Now, there's some visual imagery for you.
And just, ended up having to reinstall the entire operating system from scratch and then upgrade it because it's a downloadable upgrade, and then recover all my files, which, if a hard drive, by the way, just in case people don't do this, and I know that they don't, if you take a hard drive out of your USB slot, there's a little thing in your, I forget what it's called, the system tray, that says, click here to safely remove hardware and peripherals. Use that, because if you don't, sometimes what happens is what's known in technical terms as bricks the hard drive. And the next time you plug that little hard drive in, or even your 3 terabyte external hard drive, it's going to show up as RAW instead of NTFS or FAT32, and it will be unreadable by Windows or Macintosh, from what I understand. So that's what happened, except it was with an internal hard drive. And I ended up, luckily, Tony, I'm a nerd. I worked in technology. I've done work for Microsoft, Adobe, Bitstream, PageFlex, Intuit, in another lifetime. And I have learned how to fix computers because I screwed them up so badly trying different things that if it had cost me money to repair things, I would be poorer than I am today.
And that's saying something. Well, of course, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. There's no question about that. And, I was without my desktop for, the better part of a month because the repair on it was, I actually needed a new LCD screen. And those aren't cheap. Not at all. Yeah. And so, anyway.
And replacing the systems easily, $1,000 to $2,000, because, I do a lot of work with video and now audio, and I need a good desktop that can handle this stuff. So there we are.
All right. Well, again, good morning to one and all. Tonight there is going to be a Republican debate in Houston, Z, and I would think the way they've been going at each other, that would be, we'll set aside Carson and Kasich for a minute, but Rubio, Cruz, and Trump. This could be really this one might be actually worth watching.
Well, and it's the 10th debate, and just watching the punditry and the K Street people and the Washington, let's call them the Washington elite, along with the media and their pontification of what they think is going to happen and what reality is going to turn out to be. Interesting is definitely the word I would use. I mean, they are scrambling. They're in such bad shape that they trotted out Romney to talk about taxes and Trump's taxes. That's how desperate they are. Romney has come out of his hiding under his pile of money and his car elevator to cast aspersions on Donald Trump in a way that none of his base is going to give a rat's ass. They don't care. I mean, Romney's trying this, and there might be some weird things in his taxes, and you might want to look at his taxes and see if he actually donated to veterans and stuff, and see if he is paying his taxes. Romney, if you remember, Harry Reid, this is what gets me, is Harry Reid tried this with Romney. Harry Reid got blasted for it, and anyone who doesn't like Romney, and I'm not even saying on the left, I'm saying the right and Donald Trump supporters, all they have to point out is that Romney and the GOP establishment are using Harry Reid's playbook. And it's just going to drive them further into the ditch that they're already in. I don't see this.
It's fairly incredible. Let me read go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, after you, sir. Thank you, my esteemed colleague. The Washington Post editorial, I just want to read the beginning of it. The unthinkable is starting to look like the inevitable. Absent an extraordinary effort from people who understand the menace he represents, Donald Trump is likely to be the presidential nominee of the Republican Party. At this stage, even an extraordinary effort might fall short. But history will not look kindly on GOP leaders who fail to do everything in their power to prevent a bullying demagogue from becoming their standard bearer. And that's the first paragraph.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right, is who do they have, with the exception of Kasich, who could get the independent vote, right? Cruz, well, let's get back to Cruz. Rubio, like I said, even Joe Scarborough today was saying, boy, it looks like it's hot in that room. Rubio was giving this speech, this town hall, and Joe, granted a reasonable Republican, said, boy, it looks like it's hot in that room, referring to Rubio's propensity to sweat and drink a lot of water, something that Trump has brought up. And, I mean, there is no coming back. There are no rules anymore. There's no coming back from a Trump insult, right? Because he has this knack to point out these little nagging things that we kind of keep in the back of our head about someone. And when Trump says it, you go, yeah, he's right about that. So if Carson were a little further ahead in the polls, Trump would be bringing up the fact that he kind of acts like a psychopath, that calm demeanor that, like I've said, that calm demeanor that he has is really just a cover for underlying rage, and that's what I believe about Carson. So Rubio's going to end up as hamburger meat if he gets ahead. And Cruz, quite frankly, from our standpoint as liberals, I would much rather have Trump than Cruz. Cruz is way more dangerous. Way more dangerous.
Dana Milbank's column in the Washington Post yesterday talked about the reality of Cruz being a liar. And he pointed out on his stump speech, Ted Cruz's stump speech, how it's filled with, falsehoods. But he goes back further to when he first took his seat in the Senate and really just tore him apart for some of the things that he did, like the government shutdown, which he knew would fail, but did it anyway. He thought it would make himself look good. And there are many examples in that column. And again, today in the Washington Post, headline, Ted Cruz's vanishing base. Where are they going? I think they're going to Trump. Of course, Rubio thinks they're going to him, but they're not.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Is Haley Barbour was on MSNBC this morning, and he's talking about how it's still a wide field, and that Trump's numbers are remaining the same while the field is large. Well, I'm sorry, but Trump was running at about 30%, which was a fair statement at the time. But Jeb has dropped out. Who else has dropped out? Huckabee and the rep, but they were really kind of inconsequential. But now we're down to Carson's not even an issue, so we're really down to a three-man race. And Trump just won Nevada by 46%. So where are the other people's numbers going, right? I mean, this is like, I'm going to vote for this guy or I'm going to vote for Trump. So this guy drops out, they move over to Trump. And Trump is actually the more reasonable of the three, I think. I mean, he's got a pretty reasonable stance when it comes to Planned Parenthood. He's said some pretty reasonable things about affordable health care. The rest of his stuff is bombastic, and I'm convinced he actually really doesn't believe it. But I mean, Mark Cuban, one of his friends, said that too. Is that he doesn't believe half the stuff that he's saying, and it's all to rile up the base and to get votes. It's reality stuff. Ted Cruz is out there saying, "Gone are the days of the carnival barkers, and it's not a sideshow anymore, and we're not going to be seeing any more acrobats and dancing bears." And well, yeah, we are, and people are going to come out for it. Bread and circuses, right? I mean,
absolutely.
This is where we are. So, I mean, here's the thing, right? Is that Cruz is one. He's more fanatical. He's also, I think, more disciplined, and he's got a better crafted strategy than Trump. He can play the long game better, and he's a loner. I mean, this is a guy that's willing to destroy government to get his way, and he's a true believer. I mean, he actually believes what he says. And embraces the rights, economic and political, the radical rights, political and economic views. And this guy is truly, truly dangerous. McCarthy level dangerous.
Well, in Dana Milbank's piece yesterday, he actually references McCarthy throughout that op-ed, and it was. Well, it was fascinating, and this idea that that Cruz fired his person was really just a diversion. Nobody believes that he was doing it for any reason but to think that he is actually trying to right some wrongs, which he's not doing. As we look at any three of those men. Would be a disaster for this country. You can't be the president of the United States without having any real experience doing something like that. He wouldn't know the first thing about governing. I'm talking Trump.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we talked about this the other day too. There was there was a piece on NPR a couple days ago where they had looked into his past business successes, which are really not successes. So, you've got Trump University, failed. Trump Airlines, failed. Trump casinos, failed. Many Trump marriages, failed, and failed. And apparently part of his whole thing is he lends his name to businesses and gets paid for it. The contractors come in. About 2 months before they're about to finish the project, he sues them and ties them up into lawsuits so that they go broke. And then brings in new contractors full of illegal aliens to finish the job and save them all the money.
What tangled webs we weave. It's really amazing. Well, I do believe that the debate this evening is going to be absolutely fascinating. And, Donald Trump's propensity to get angry at the drop of a dime is what's got me intrigued on this. So I know that he actually does now have a group of advisors. And he has been told he's got to watch his temper. And not that I think that matters, but I just don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to process Donald Trump or Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio. That any of these guys get any votes is blowing my mind. And again, that first sentence in the Washington Post op-ed this morning: the unthinkable is starting to look like the inevitable. Wow. Yeah, and this is where we are, right? And so this kind of leads to a different issue that I've been thinking about the last couple of days of the electorate, right? So we have basically, and this is, let's look at both sides. We have an electorate that's angry, frustrated, frightened, and hates Washington. The Congress's approval rating is hovering somewhere around, 9%, which means that they probably polled Congress right? and their families to get to at least 9%. So I look at the kids, the millennials, who really aren't voting, and they're going to stump speeches, they're going to events, but they're not coming out and voting in the primaries. So we have all this anger and frustration, and we have candidates like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio who are doing the same thing that candidates always do and making potentially empty promises. And promises that they won't be able to keep, right? Promises that they're not going to be able to get done for the most part. We can get into the details later or at some other time. But they have to deal with Congress. So they're not going to be able to keep those promises, and Congress and reality, which are two completely different things. So one of those three gets in, or one of those four gets in, the electorate's going to be completely disappointed in what happens, just much like they were with Obama, that he didn't keep his promises, that he didn't do what he said he was going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then we have Hillary Clinton, who completely represents decades of the establishment, is probably the presumptive nominee and probably winner of the final election by most pundits' view and predictions. And she is basically going to be a status quo president. And again, you have an electorate that is completely frustrated with the status quo. So there is no good way that this ends. There's absolutely no good way that this ends. And in the meantime, careers, reputations, and feelings are getting just completely destroyed. Particularly, the only ones that I care about are on the left, is Hillary Clinton's scorched earth kind of tactics that she's using on Bernie Sanders, which if
if it gets tighter, are going to get even worse.
Well, and I saw some polling this morning that she's up in South Carolina 60-32. And in most of the Super Tuesday states, and this was an odd one, with the exception of Oklahoma, where they're within the margin of error. And I find that really odd. But in most other Super Tuesday states, Bernie's not faring well. And people are beginning to say, and you knew this was coming, he's not electable. But he actually addressed that on Jimmy Kimmel Live last year, didn't he?
I believe he did.
Yeah, let's take a listen to that, and then we'll come back and talk about this.
Some of your supporters say you're not electable. They say you're too old. They say you're too far left. They say you don't bother to brush your hair. How do you respond to something like that, where people say, why bother supporting this guy? He's not going to be president.
It's a fair question. Let me answer it in two respects. If you look at polls out there, it turns out that in many of the polls, I am doing better than Hillary is against Donald Trump. We're doing better. Number two, when Republicans win, God forbid. When they win, Jimmy, voter turnout is very low. And we got millions of people really discouraged and have given up on the political process. We have brought out in this campaign over 250,000 people to meetings. We have 650,000 individuals have contributed to our campaign. We have a real grassroots campaign, and I believe that if I am the Democratic nominee, you're going to see voter turnout go way up. I think we're going to win the White House. I think we recapture the Senate. We do well in the House. We win governor's chairs. Our job is not just to defeat Republicans. Our job is to revitalize American democracy, bring people who have given up on the political system back into the system, and create a government which represents them rather than large campaign donors.
You said a moment ago. You said God forbid. You say you're culturally Jewish? You don't feel religious. Do you believe in God, and do you think that's important to the people of the United States?
I am who I am, and what I believe in, and what my spirituality is about, is that we're all in this together. That I think it is not a good thing to believe that as human beings we can turn our backs on the suffering of other people. That we should not be living, and this is not Judaism, this is what Pope Francis is talking about, that we cannot worship just billionaires in the making of more and more money. Life is more than that. That we are living in a nation today which has seen a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires, massive income and wealth inequality. And you know what? We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth. We are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. The only country that doesn't have paid family and medical leave. Many other countries are providing free tuition in their public colleges and universities. So essentially what I think is we do best as human beings. We fulfill our lives when we work together rather than say, hey, I want it all and I don't care about the hungry kid down the street. I don't think that's what America should be about.
All right, see, I mean, so eloquently said, straightforward, to the point, and, you know, since he gave that interview, lots of good things have happened for the Sanders campaign. The question is now, will it be enough? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a delegates game. Let's forget about the superdelegates for a moment. It's a delegates game. And, you know, it's not going to even be close, I think.
Well, but the delegates, I mean, at least according to Chris Hayes the other day, like you said, not including the superdelegates, just the delegates. The last time I looked, it was tied.
Well, you know, you may be right. I think it was 50-50. I mean, literally not. Yeah, I think it was 50 delegates for each of them. Of course, then that's why I said, we have to take a look at that. Bernie Sanders has done an exceptional job, and I'm glad he doesn't do it too often. But he's done an exceptional job of saying, hey, listen, when I started this, I was at 10%, she was at 70%, and look what happened here. And he's been right all along. I mean, he's really, said, polls are not worth the paper they're printed on. And to some degree, well, that may be true, but I don't necessarily buy it. I don't place all of my stock in polling, but I think it does give us a window into the world, whether we want it or not. With that said, Bernie Sanders is not taking anything for granted, nor should he. He's going to be in Flint, Michigan today, by the way, which is a good thing. And Hillary is going to be staying in South Carolina. She has 3 events there today. And then, of course, it's up to the voters of South Carolina to decide what they want to do in their primary for the Democrats. I don't know. I just, Bernie Sanders still has a purpose in this process. My fear is if he doesn't do well in a couple states, if he doesn't stay somewhat competitive, then people are going to have to stop listening to him because at that point it's going to be about the convention and what he's going to want.
Well, but he's still ahead in 3 national polls. I mean, he's polling pretty well nationally. And now, you said the purpose that he serves, and I completely agree. I mean, he is he's pushing Clinton way out of her comfort zone as far as left-wing policies, which is fantastic. So,
well,
I certainly think about that.
No, and it's just such an interesting political whirlwind right now, and with every passing day, something new has either happened or somebody's being accused of something. Did you happen to see Mika Brzezinski's interview with Melania Trump?
I did. I saw parts of it.
Okay. But, I don't know. I can't see. Never mind. It sounds so stupid. I can't see her as first lady. Oh God. This is exhausting.
Well,
it
and
really
for a base, this is what I don't get too, is for a base that is so anti-immigrant, right? Is you've got her up there from Slovenia, who I don't get how it's okay. I mean, I don't get how they're okay with having an Eastern European mail order bride.
Well, she claims they did everything legally. So she's here legally, and like that matters.
Yeah, when you have $11 billion, anything's legal, right?
Right. Well, let's go back to the Mitt Romney. There's a bombshell coming in Trump's tax returns. Now, listen, I've got to imagine, that his tax return is very, very complicated, right? I mean, let's just be honest about that. Just by virtue of what he holds, what he's got out there, income, etc. His tax return, I mean, I can't even imagine. It would probably take a whole floor of accountants to put it together. And he has promised to release them. So if there were a bombshell there, then much ado about nothing. I just don't understand. I mean, maybe the establishment is trying to do something. At the same time, they need to be, Richard Zombek, very careful, because if this guy does become their nominee and they're not on board with him, he won't care.
Well, and I don't know that people do care. Look, Romney got hit with the tax thing too. And it was a lot of the conversation was around rich people not paying their fair share of taxes because it doesn't really count as income, so they pay. And so he was asked about his tax rate, and he says, my tax rate is about 12-13%, and that's perfectly legal. That's how our tax laws are written, and I take advantage of everything I possibly can. And he didn't really get slammed for that, but it kind of started the conversation around the fact that we need to change the tax structure in this country and all that, right? Donald Trump was asked a very similar question, and his response was nothing near that. His response was, I do everything I can to pay as little as possible in taxes. And there was no outrage because it's expected. I mean, one, I think we all do as much as we can to pay as little in taxes as possible within the purviews and the constraints of the law. And when you've got billions of dollars and you can hide it and put it overseas and not count it as income and not get taxed on speculation and all of that, then do that. And I think the base, the type of people that would vote for a Romney or, for that matter, a Donald Trump, are thinking, I'm going to do the same thing when I'm rich, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're, pig farmers in, East ass crack, whatever. And well, when I'm rich, I'm going to do the same thing. I don't think the government should get my taxes. So
absolutely, that unemployment check is not serving you well. Z, as you were talking, I'm thinking that throughout the course of history, we've had some political revolutions. Ross Perot was a kind of a quasi-revolution in his own way, and certainly cost George H.W. Bush re-election. There's no question that's true. But as we look at Donald Trump, again, going back to the Washington Post editorial from today, it says, now faced with a frontrunner who is saying things like, I'd punch him in the face. This is a frontrunner with no credibility or no credible agenda or suitable experience. He wants the United States to commit more crimes, including torture and murder of innocent relatives of suspected terrorists. He admires Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and sees no difference between Mr. Putin's victims and people killed in defense of the United States. He would round up and deport 11 million people, a forced movement on a scale not attempted since Stalin or perhaps Pol Pot. He has, during the course of his campaign, denigrated women, Jews, Muslims, Mexicans, people with disabilities, and many more. He routinely trades in wild falsehoods and doubles down when his lies are exposed. Well, sounds a little bit like Carly Fiorina, number one. But number two, the media is finally calling each other out and saying, we need to get rid of this guy.
Yeah, and it's too late. The cat's out of the bag. I mean, it's over. I don't think there's any way of getting rid of Donald Trump, Tony. I really don't. Now, so, and who cares? Right? Do we really want someone that's gonna give either Hillary or Bernie a better run for their money? I mean, the thing is he's polling at 46% among Republicans, right? He's not polling at 46% nationally. Nationally, his approval ratings are around 20%. So our only hope really is that the American electorate understands how freaking important it is that they register to vote and go out and vote. And why I'm not getting 500 emails a day reminding me to register is completely beyond me. I mean, there should be national ads. Actually, the DNC should be paying us to be running ads for Get Out the Vote on our show. That's what they should be doing.
Well, for about 3 years when I was on in Detroit radio locally, I did a register to vote public service ad. And after 3 years, I just thought, oh, this is old and election was over. And people actually send me emails and say, hey, why don't you put that ad back on? Because it really helped me to remind myself to register. And I was surprised. I was really surprised.
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense to me why, and they do this every time. I mean, the Obama election was known and went down in history as the campaign that used social media and Get Out the Vote to its advantage more than anyone in history had. And why aren't we hearing this? I mean, this election, this is coming down to it. I mean, granted, we're what, maybe 320 days away from this. I understand that's a long time, but there are states where you have to register months in advance, where you have to have all your ducks in a row, where some are requiring IDs, and I just don't see it. And I think, and you and I talked about this a little the other day, is I think too, and this is kind of maybe more deep thought and speculation than we need right now, but really, what the hell, right? Is Clinton has come out hard against Bernie Sanders and her scorched earth kind of campaigning. The tactics, and I know we got an email complaining about about her tactics and what I was saying about them, but she does play dirty politics, and the Clintons have always played dirty politics, and they come out with this stuff, and they're hitting Bernie hard. They're using all of their pull and their connections and calling in all of their favors, where you've got people like John Lewis and Maxine Waters and other really pretty prominent, reasonable Democrats saying, yeah, but Bernie's a socialist. I mean, this country will never elect a socialist, and putting that meme out there, and then questioning his role in civil rights, and getting journalists to question his role and ruin his reputation, where the Democrats can sit back and go, yeah, it doesn't really matter what I do. There's no one's in contention here. There's no risk that Hillary's not going to get the nomination. And so they don't come out, because why would they? What is it going to matter? And then you have Bernie Sanders losing by about 400 votes, 400 or 600 votes, and the media going, she massive win by 4 points, and boy, she really hammered Sanders, and he doesn't stand a chance anymore. When meanwhile he's polling extremely well nationally. They're tied with the delegates, and the Democrats had one of the lowest turnouts in history in the primaries this election season, and the Republicans are up 23% in turnout, and Democrats are down by about 15%. So, I think it was a mistake on the part. Well, I won't say that. Clinton's scorched earth campaigning affected the turnout and has affected the Democratic Party, where we're not seeing the kind of turnout that we would hope for. And I don't know how, with that kind of an attitude, they're going to get excited for the general election, because I think a lot, and we've talked about this before too, people see Trump against Hillary, they go, oh, there's no way he could win. And they think it doesn't matter if they vote or not.
Yeah, let me just take a little detour here and talk about some polling that was released over the last couple of days. In Florida, Donald Trump seems to have a commanding lead over native son Marco Rubio. Ted Cruz far behind him. In Texas, there were 3 polls that came out today, all over the place. All over the place. One of them has Trump and Cruz tied. One of them has Cruz up by 20%. And I don't remember what the other percentage was, but Cruz was winning. And then we take a look at some of the Super Tuesday states, which is coming up just in 4 or 5 days. And Trump is polling well in those. If he pulls out of, or if he comes out of the Super Tuesday battle, having won, let's say, 70, 80% of them, and that's very possible based on the polling that's available. Who's next out? Because Kasich and Ben Carson are not factors.
Kasich
if Rubio, let me put it this way: if Rubio loses Florida, is it time for him to go do his part-time job until he's done?
I think it is, but I don't think he will. I think Kasich's in it for the long haul, and I think Carson is in a vanity run. I don't think Carson's a pretty smart guy, but I don't. He might say he still thinks he could win, but I think this is a vanity tour and more of a consultant meal ticket and book signing tour than anything else. Kasich seems quasi delusional that he thinks he can still pull this out. But here's the thing, right? Is Kasich could very well be the favorite right now among the Republicans, the Republican establishment and donors, simply because he's got the executive experience and he's a pretty reasonable, moderate Republican and could probably pull a lot of the independent voters away from, Hillary Clinton, who the independents who are more likely to wax Republican than their counterparts. So, I mean, that side of the race is gearing up to be pretty interesting. And both Cruz and Rubio are showing a little bit of sack recently in attacking Trump, not to his face, mind you, but really they've got to put out a couple $100,000 in a TV ad, and all Trump has to do is tweet something. So and going down that road, how is Bernie Sanders going to fare against literally probably $500 million worth of negative advertising? Speaking of Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, is both of them, and I heard this on one of the shows today too, they have completely laid waste to Citizens United. Yeah. I mean, it almost go ahead. Almost make it like it never, like Citizens United is inconsequential, because both these guys are either funding themselves or getting $27 from each donor and running for president. So, I mean, that's the real interesting part of all this. Well, there are a lot of interesting parts, but that's the interesting part at 11:15 this morning.
Yeah, it could change by 11:20, especially with Donald Trump involved. So we look ahead to the Democratic primary this weekend in South Carolina, and then next Tuesday is Super Tuesday. And then it gets really interesting there because Marco Rubio continues to say that he's going to win Florida, although he's not close to being able to validate that, according to the polls. And I just believe that the media, however you want to define the media, finds themselves in a bit of a pickle because they've got to cover these people. And some columnists are being honest and real and demanding, as you have been. But I don't think it's going to be enough. And I think that this Trump phenomenon is going to end up being a kerfuffle. But for now, I believe, and I'm going to say this fairly emphatically, that Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee for the presidency.
I think he is. I don't see that they have any way of avoiding that. I mean, I really don't, unless something really. And here's the thing, Tony, and he said it himself. Is, you know, he's talked about punching people in the face. He's thrown out reporters. He's thrown out protesters. He's taken protesters' coats away. He said disgusting thing about women and immigrants and Mexicans and Muslims. He's gotten on stage and said, I could shoot someone on a street in New York and my fans would still love me. And I think he is right.
As do I.
Yeah, and so Romney bringing up this tax thing, so there's something weird in Trump's taxes. I don't think anyone's going to care.
I don't either. You know, he was talking about his casino partner in Las Vegas, Bill Ruffin, yesterday. Bill Ruffin did an interview on MSNBC where he told this lovely story about Donald Trump paying for his $300,000 wedding. I don't even know how much the wedding was. The $300,000 was Bill Ruffin wanted Lionel Richie to pay. He says, "Does that mean you're going to pay the $300,000 for not Lionel Richie?" And he said, "Nope, that's on your dime." Ha 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 ha. Yeah, not funny. Really not funny. But that's okay. We'll get over that. You know, as we're sitting here talking, and we really should spend a little bit of time on the situation with Apple not allowing the federal government into an iPhone. And I've been very conflicted about that, Z. I mean, I'm very conflicted about it. I believe that our privacy is our privacy. At the same time, if there's an advantage to knowing what was in that phone that will solve some or answer some questions and solve some problems, you know, I'm not trying to waffle. I just don't know that I don't know who to side with.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It is a tough one, and every one of those decisions becomes a slippery slope, right? And in my estimation, I think I find it interesting that the Republicans, who are all about small government and about letting the market decide and all that, are jumping all over Apple to release this in the name of terrorism and safety, when really what it does is opens up all of this to a huge invasion of privacy. And the fact that they will allow this, if this goes through, that it opens the door and it sets a precedent for future backdoor activity in technology terms. It allows for, it sets a precedent to basically just go into any computer and any cell phone and break the encryption and spy on people.
Well,
so,
and of course, the news this morning is that Apple is even working on a stronger security measure for the iPhone. Bill Gates came out and sided with the FBI, as have others. You know, the bottom line, Z, is, again, it's not an issue that I can easily answer right now. I just can't. That's a tough one.
Well, and here's the thing is, and maybe we can have him on the show, is I know a guy actually who who's a lawyer who specializes in this kind of stuff, and he actually recently just wrote a piece on the whole Apple thing, and also has some opinions about the Hillary Clinton email server and all that, and he specializes in data and online security and technology and that kind of stuff. So he might be a good guy to have on the show one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
And figure out what why we're so confused and conflicted.
Yeah, because I just don't. I have a real hard time putting my finger on that one. I don't know exactly how I feel, and I've been following that story fairly closely, and I don't know. It's just it's a tough one for me. And you're right. It does start a precedent that is going to be very difficult to undo. I don't know, man. This is just crazy. This is just crazy. Well, so here we are, a couple days away from Super Tuesday. Somebody is going to do real well on the Democratic side. Somebody's going to do real well on the Republican side. I think that's clear. I think that we've pretty much established that it's Donald Trump on the Republican side. I want to play a little audio. Bernie Sanders, and actually part of the answer on if you believed in God during the Jimmy Kimmel interview, is very good. But last Saturday night, there was a town hall in South Carolina, and Bernie Sanders was asked the question again about his religion, and this is what he had to say.
You in New Hampshire, we talked about religion. Yep. You said your spirituality is that we are all in this together.
Yep.
Explain to people what in your head and in your heart motivates that togetherness. Is there a higher power? Is there a higher intelligence? What do you believe in?
This is what I believe. Every great religion in the world, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, essentially comes down to do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. And what I have believed in my whole life, I believed it when I was a 22-year-old kid getting arrested in Chicago fighting segregation. I believed it in my whole life, that we are in this together, not words. The truth is, at some level, when you hurt, when your children hurt, I hurt. And when my kids hurt, you hurt. And it's very easy to turn our backs on kids who are hungry or veterans who are sleeping out on the street. And we can develop a psyche, a psychology which says, I don't have to worry about them. All I'm going to worry about myself. I need to make another $5 billion. But I believe that what human nature is about is that everybody in this room impacts everybody else in all kinds of ways that we can't even understand. It's beyond intellect. It's a spiritual, emotional thing. So I believe that when we do the right thing, when we try to treat people with respect and dignity, when we say that that child who is hungry is my child, I think we are more human when we do that than when we say, hey, this whole world is me, I need more and more, I don't care about anybody else. That's my religion, that's what I believe in. And I think, most people around the world, whatever their religion, their color, share that belief that we are in it together as human beings. And it becomes more and more practical. If we destroy the planet because we don't deal with climate change, trust me, we are all in it together. All right? So we have got to work together, and that is what my spirituality is about.
All right, there you go. That was a great little dialogue there, Z.
Yeah, kind of makes you tear up a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. It's Bernie Sanders. I mean, how do you beat that? And with what I tend to think of as disingenuous, scripted rhetoric. But that's just me.
Well, it really was well said and well spoken, and yeah, it does put a little lump in your throat, kind of like his America ad put a little lump in my throat. I can't get enough of that ad. And of course, I see the Morgan Freeman one on Hillary Clinton every morning. But as we're nearing the end of the show, and as I'm thinking about really the three main things we talked about today, just the GOP in general and the establishment, Democrats and where they're headed, and Super Tuesday. Of those three, what would you say is the most impactful to our current political process? Do you think just the decline of the Republican Party? And I do think it's in decline. You don't necessarily have to agree with me on that. Do you think that the Democrats aren't doing enough, or do you think that Super Tuesday may be a lot closer and maybe more competitive than the polling is suggesting?
I think it's going to be closer than what the Clinton campaign wants it to be. That's what I think. I think most of us are going to be. I think the punditry is going to come out and say that, oh, she won handily again, and what a great job she did, and right on, she's on her way to the White House. But I think the real numbers are going to be very close. Like Nevada was. I mean, she won by 600 votes.
Well, yes, I'm sitting here. I've got MSNBC on the TV, and there's another poll out. Hillary Clinton is way ahead in Texas. Listening to the pundits last night on a couple different shows, they're all saying that Bernie Sanders is just hanging around so that he can broker some fairy and favor at the convention. I don't believe Bernie Sanders works that way.
No, I don't think so either.
I just don't think that he works that way. I don't think that he's. What's he going to demand? Free college? I mean, what's he going to demand?
Yeah.
Whatever. Let's say Hillary is the nominee, and he wants something from her. He doesn't want to be Secretary of State. I can promise you that. So what do you want? I don't. Wow, I used to be so good at this, and then Donald Trump entered the picture.
That does kind of screw it all up, doesn't it?
See, it does, because it's not as much fun with him. Because there's a chance this man could get elected.
Yeah, I know.
I was thinking very quickly before we have to go. I was thinking this morning.
I said I know, but I don't see it. I mean, I don't see him. I just don't see him getting elected. I see him getting the nomination, but I don't see him getting elected.
All right. Well, tomorrow we will be back. We'll talk some debate, and we'll wrap up the week here on TNZTalk.com. TNZ is everything you need from us is there. Do you need to add anything before we check out today, Z?
No, TNZ Talk. Go there, follow us, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, everything. Go to our support page, see how you can support us. Go to iTunes, rate us. There's even a video up on the support page that walks you through the convoluted way iTunes makes you rate podcasts in their store. So, yeah, everything's at TNZTalk.com.
All right, Z, glad to have you back today. Glad to be back today, and we will see everyone tomorrow. Thanks to Ron Spikes and Rihanna and everybody at Blog Talk USA. And as always, we ask that you be well.